This is the Samsung S95F QD OLED TV, and this is the Samsung QN90F Neo-QLED TV. And in this video, I'll try to help you decide which one is right for you. I've got to give Samsung a lot of credit when it comes to what the brand is doing with OLED TVs. The OLED TVs are getting better and better to the point where they're in conversation with equivalent models from LG and Sony. With OLED, you're going to have a few more limitations when it comes to screen size options, but what you will enjoy is this really distinct, flat, thin design. It'll look beautiful, wall-mounted, very premium looking, but one way that Samsung is differentiating OLED from Neo-QLED is with the One Connect box. Come around here, I'll show you. I think ideally you'd actually want to mount this TV on the wall, and then this box that's attached to kind of like the foot right here actually comes off, and you can put this into a cabinet, really anywhere that's more accessible for changing inputs, and that way your cable management is out of the way. You don't have to mess with your wall setup for that really clean premium aesthetic. Although stereotype around this is changing, OLED has been long considered not the best TV option if you like to watch TV with the lights on, or if you're in a room that has window lighting, a lot of ambient lighting. That, again, has kind of changed these days, but in order to combat natural lighting, ambient lighting, Samsung uses a glare-free display on its flagship QD OLED TV. Basically, if I were to shine a light right on this, instead of giving me the clear outline of that light, it would more or less diffuse the light. Still not ideal if you're watching a big motion picture, but it is effective, and in fact, a lot of manufacturers are actually copying Samsung based on how well it was received on the S95D from last year. But I can actually only show you so much here, so let's take a look at the numbers. All right, let's break down the results side by side, starting with the Samsung S95F. In terms of picture accuracy, we've got a delta E of 1.2. That is excellent. Anything under 2 is considered top tier, and this TV is comfortably below that mark. Now, brightness, it is wild. In HDR using a 10% window in filmmaker mode, the S95F OLED clocked in at just over 2100 nits. That's seriously impressive, especially for an OLED TV. Color reproduction is another standout. We're looking at near perfect coverage of the color space, which means you're getting vivid, accurate colors even in super saturated scenes. Honestly, the S95F is really shaping up to be one of the top contenders this year, and so long are the days where it can't have the same brightness that you get with mini LED TVs. Now, if I'm honest, I think any TV going up against the S95F doesn't really have a fair shot. But if I'm saying a TV like this is so great, then why is everyone so obsessed with mini LED TVs these days? Well, that's a great question, Kate. Whereas with that S95F OLED TV, we were talking about contrast. I was really hyped about that. But now looking at the QN90F mini LED TV, I'm talking about brightness. That's what you're going to experience with mini LED TV. And for some reason, brightness is the key word that customers are looking for. They want to know that in no matter what room they're watching, the picture is going to look bright, and brightness then unlocks great contrast, great colors. There's a lot more you can do with brightness when it's controlled properly, of course. This TV also has the NQ4 AI Gen 3 processor, so hopefully we're going to see some similar control capabilities here, but what is going to be different compared to the OLED is the size capabilities of mini LED. The panels aren't constrained by size, so here we're going to talk about going from a 43-inch size all the way up to 115-inch size, which is wild. But again, that's what people are looking for. With OLED TVs, you're going to be a bit more constrained, you know, up to 83, maybe 97. Whereas last year, glare made a big difference in what TV to buy from the Samsung lineup. This year, the mini LED TVs have the glare-free technology, which again is great. I sound like a broken record. It looks great, everyone wants it, and in a room like this, we're getting that diffuse light effect. But also on the design side, a little bit of a trade-up. This does look pretty great at a glance. It still is very slim profile, but all of the inputs are integrated, no One Connect box, so it will have just a little bit thicker of a look. You might not have that same full, premium, slim, flush to the wall feel that you get with OLED. I think that comes down to preference. I'm not going to go too much into the actual software features in this video just because they're the same on both, and I want to save some good stuff for when we actually get these TVs into our lab for full reviews. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on those notifications so you don't miss when those come out, and let me know in the comments which you'd want to see first, and I'll see what I can do. But design and configurations aside, we do have some numbers to talk about. Accuracy-wise, it's right there with the S95F. The Delta E is a little closer to 2, but still under, which is excellent for a TV of this tier. HDR brightness is also just over 2100 nits in that same 10% window as the S95F. In other words, the QN90F and S95F are basically neck and neck when it comes to those peak highlights, which says a lot, especially for how far QD-OLED has come in closing the brightness gap with high-end LED panels. Where the QN90F falls maybe a little bit behind is in color coverage. We measured about 93% of the color space, still solid, but not quite as much as the S95F's near perfect level. That said, I do want to test both of these TVs more thoroughly in the lab before drawing any harder conclusions than that. So both TVs are basically crushing it in terms of brightness and accuracy, but the S95F may edge out a little bit in color performance, at least for now. If there's one thing I could say about the S95F versus the QN90F, it's that the gap between OLED and mini LED is closing in. You know, with OLED, you're typically talking about perfect blacks, really rich contrast, but these days, brightness is really good too. And with mini LEDs, traditionally it was all about brightness, but the black quality, the blooming, and the contrast is really keeping up with OLED. So when it comes down to which one you're going to want to buy, you're going to want to think about the size, the price as it fits into your budget, and your technology preference. And while it's great that we have those lab results to shed a bit more light on how these TVs actually stack up, I'm not going to be making any definitive conclusions until we do those full reviews. You're going to want to stick around for that, but that's it for me for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.